What's up, everybody? It's Jay. Welcome back to my channel. I'm excited to do a movie review for you guys this evening. I haven't done one of these in a while, but I'm super excited because I just watched this really cool film a few days ago. It's called Paths of Glory, and it was directed by my favorite director, Stanley Kubrick, and quite possibly the greatest director of all time. This movie is sort of a drama war film, I guess you could say. It's actually under 90 minutes, but it's an awesome film. It's got some awesome cinematography, dialogue written, it's you can tell it's a Kubrick film by just sort of the way it feels, sort of the way it's presented, and it's like that indescribable quality of Stanley Kubrick films. Like, okay, take 2001 A Space Odyssey, for example. That's sort of a film that you can't really explain how it makes you feel. It's almost like you don't really understand it because it's so far ahead of its time. It's like such a film of just vast knowledge and intelligence. That's not necessarily what this film is, but it's kind of the feel that you get from Kubrick films. I know, I'm talking a lot about Kubrick right now, but let's jump into the movie. Now, General Bullard and General Moreau, they sort of have a discussion on what their next plan of attack should be, and Bullard orders Moreau to attack the German-occupied position called the Anthill. Now, Moreau, he orders Colonel Dax, which is in charge of the 701st Regiment, to attack the Anthill. Now, Dax disagrees, but Moreau is his superior, so he has to abide by what he says, of course. Now, we get this really cool tracking shot, actually, throughout the trenches, and it really reminded me of the tracking shot scenes that I had seen when I watched 1917 a couple years ago. I'm telling you, that film owes a lot to this movie because in that time, in 57, nobody had really seen a tracking shot as such, and you never really got like the actual like being inside of like an actual trench, like, because you almost got like the feeling of you're actually in there. You are Colonel Dax, aka the audience, and you're walking through the trenches, and you get a feel of all the explosions. You know, you get a feeling of, you know, what the soldiers are going through. You get to hear people panic. It's just, it's hard to explain because war is so indescribably terrifying. It's so chaotic that you really have to be there, and it's almost like you are there in the scene throughout that tracking shot. That's probably the thing I most appreciated about this film. Now, Colonel Dax leads the charge to take over the Anthill, but it fails miserably. It fails pretty badly. The soldiers are forced to retreat, and Moreau actually orders the soldiers, his own French soldiers, to be taken out because they failed so badly. Now, Moreau obviously is an ambitious leader. He doesn't, take shit from anybody. He doesn't really take no for an answer. I mean, just look at the scene when he was dealing with a shell-shocked soldier.
Have you got a wife, soldier?
My wife? My wife? Yes, I have a wife. I'm never going to see her again. I'm going to be killed.
Get a grip on yourself. You're acting like a coward.
I am a coward, sir.
Snap out of it, soldier. Sergeant, I want you to arrange for the immediate transfer of this baby out of my regiment. I won't have other brave men contaminated by him. Yes, sir.
As a soldier, you're watching people die around you all the time. It's constantly loud and chaotic. You're living your life in fear. You don't know when you're going to die. You don't know when your last meal is going to be. You don't know how you're going to die. You don't know how much longer you have to go through this. You don't know if you're ever going to see your mother again. You don't know if you're going to see any of your family members, any of your other family members again. And that really gets you. That's part of it. So the tracking shot and the shell-shocked soldier thing for me really made me think about those things, which really made me have a greater appreciation for this film even after I watched it. Now, Moreau is very upset, and he actually orders a soldier from each department to be elected to stand trial for cowardice in the face of the enemy. Now, these soldiers are placed on trial. They are simply asked, did they retreat without any detail? Colonel Dax tried to interfere. He tried to object. He asked them a few questions, and he gives his closing speech, which was very powerful. And he's like, disgusted with human society. These are brave men. They're fighting for their country. They're out there, pouring their heart and soul into this. I mean, what else are they supposed to do? I mean, how could you do that to these poor men? Doesn't work. It doesn't work. These men, all three of these men are convicted, and we get a very sad scene where they're with the priest. One of the soldiers gets angry and they get knocked out for not really having a religious background. They think it's, bogus, and we get this scene where it's sort of, we build up anticipation for their execution. And I thought in this moment, somehow, some way, they're going to be safe. Colonel Dax is going to find out some sort of piece of information that could be used against General Moreau for having a say in convicting them, for, having them making everyone believe that they were cowards in the face of the enemy when they're just out there trying to do their job. They're doing the very best that they can. It was a bad tactic for Moreau and for Brulard to this attack plan. It wasn't good. And that's the very unique thing about this film, I thought. The Germans, in a lot of war films, it's like the other side, they're the enemy. No, the enemy is Moreau. And even on your own side, you have somebody like that blaming these poor children. And I say children because, you had literally like 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, people my age that were fighting in this war. And, they're basically kids. That's what's really sad. And all three of them are executed, and I really should have known better. That's one of the tragedies of war, is even somebody on your own side may be against you. It's war, it's ugly, it's hideous, and Dax, being the hero that he was, did everything he could to defend his army as a good colonel would. So as it turns out, however, Dax did a little investigating, and he found out that Moreau did in fact order the firing of his own soldiers. So he's like, how dare you make me the scapegoat? He storms out, and Dax is offered the job of being the new general by Brulard. And that's it. To me, this film is not necessarily about, war itself, but sort of the psychological toll that war has on a person. You look at the shell-shocked soldier, you look at the tracking shot, you look at the thoughts and feelings that these men had. You look at the decisions that they made. You look at how they reacted to the costly decisions that they made. How Moreau was like, he ordered the firing of his own men. He was panicking. How Dax was sort of like disgusted with human society. How these poor soldiers, their thoughts and, just how they were just trying to get out of this awful situation. How the poor priest, what he was thinking, how he couldn't do anything about it. And it seemed to me, and I could be wrong about this, but it was just a message of, it was almost like, I don't want to say it was like an anti-war film, like against war, because I don't really know if that was Stanley Kubrick's belief, but to me it was like a story about the toll that war could take, not just physically, not just for certain countries, on certain people, but the people involved in the war. Now, Stanley Kubrick is known as a director that sort of likes to take you away from like the thoughts and feelings of different characters, like as almost if we can't relate to them, but we want to still understand them. Like there are certain directors, they have the style of like, you want to like get inside the head of that specific character. Kubrick does the opposite. He's like, I want to pull you away from these characters. Like, let's get out of here. And I think one of the stylistic choices that he made in order to do so was using black and white, because that's almost sort of like we can't see. It's not that we can't see the emotion, but you know, if it's just black and white and there's no color, it's sort of dull, drab. It's war. It's gross. It's just ugh, let's get away from these characters. It's black and white. It's still ugh. This is the type of terrible, just just the toll it can take having to go through war. And that's one of the things that, you know, it makes me think about the soldiers even nowadays, the shit that they have to put up with, you know, putting their lives on the line every single day. I mean, these are the bravest people ever, and war to me is like man's biggest tragedy. It is people, yes, they're defending their country, but they're also intentionally killing others. You think God put us on this earth to intentionally kill each other? No. For every war, God sheds a tear. Personally, that's just what I believe. That's kind of the thoughts and feelings that I had as I'm going through this. To me, it was just about just war and how shit it was. But yeah, no, I wanted to talk about the acting on Kirk Douglas's part. He did show, you could tell he was probably the most emotional character for me, because you could tell he was doing his best to defend his army. He was trying to express his feelings. He was doing his very best to stick up for his men, and that's what he did, and that's why he was made a general, because he was loyal to his army. He didn't betray them like Moreau did. That was the main point. He stuck to his gut. He stuck to his army. He defended them as best he could. That's why he was put in charge. And you could tell he was just going out of his way in the trial to defend these guys. It's like, these guys, they're doing their best. It's like he even said it as they were before they were placed on trial. It's like, stick to your stories. You know, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna object if I need to. Now, the last thing I wanted to mention to you guys were soldiers who were fighting in that war. And to truly understand the amount of bravery and shit that they had to deal with. If you look up soldiers before and after the war, you're going to find some very disturbing pictures. Now, I'm not going to show you them because they're far too graphic, but if you search that up, you're going to find the before and after picture of these soldiers, and it truly is heartbreaking, but it just goes to show you that these were just people, you know, my age. I mean, hell, Vietnam, the average age, I think, between both countries was 19. You know, I'm 19, and they were, you know, sent off to war, and, you know, a lot of them died, and a lot of the ones who survived had to live with, like, getting parts of their body blown off. They had burn marks. They were shell-shocked. They had aged terribly, and that really got me thinking, especially when I saw that shell-shocked soldier. I mean, and I wanted to mention it because I think it's very important that we memorize soldiers like that, and how really important they were, and how a lot of us, I don't think, would be here today had it not been for them. And I just, you know, I think it's important that even though, you know, a lot of the soldiers that you saw and you know, the least we could do is memorize them for doing the bravest thing that you could ever do, is putting your life on the line for somebody else. And that's what that's what they did. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that movie review. I know I did leave some things about the movie. I was just trying to hit the main points and some of what I got from the movie. Like I said, I could be, you know, missing the mark on some of my thoughts and feelings and what the movie was really about, because Stanley Kubrick, he's not an easy person to figure out, especially when it comes to sending certain messages throughout your movie. You really have to watch it a few times. You really gotta, you know, dive deep. You really gotta know movies super well. But that's why, man, he's like the best director. To me, he's the greatest director of all time, and personally, my favorite director. Thanks so much for watching. God bless, and I'll see you later.